traveling with my boyfriend. Hello, hello, Boga. Oh my God. Hello, welcome to my channel. Today, in this video, we are going to talk about what to expect when you arrive at the airport as an international student. I'm currently here at the Vancouver airport, and I'm going to use the Vancouver airport to demonstrate to you the process that you go through when you arrive here as an international student, and how some of the questions that you need to expect when you finally arrive in Canada as an international student. So let's go straight into the video and watch till the end. Okay, I'm sure most of you are preparing to come to Canada. You've done your applications and you probably have your visa and you are getting ready to come to Canada. In fact, when you get on the plane and you finally arrive in Canada, you are not actually in Canada. You only get to Canada when you have crossed that line, and I'm going to show you that line. I'm currently here at Vancouver airport, and I'm using the Vancouver airport to show you. So you see that line where the immigration officers are, and you see the woman in the jacket who just stepped out. When you cross that line, that is when you are actually in Canada. When you are here, where these people are standing in the queue, you are just waiting for your turn to justify yourself whether you can be allowed to enter Canada or not. So as you see, people are lined up in the queue. Okay, now when you arrive and you finally come out of the aeroplane, you go through the arrival hall, you go through all the processes, and then you finally arrive at this particular spot. This is where you need to prove yourself. This is where the immigration officer is going to determine whether you qualify to enter Canada or not. My dear, this is a very important stage in your dream of coming to Canada, whether to study or to come and work. If you don't make it at this stage, my dear, you are going back home. Having the visa alone is no guarantee that you'll be entering the country called Canada. Having the visa alone is not enough. When you have the visa and then you finally arrive here, this is the part that you need to convince the immigration officer here that you are actually here for studies or for work or for visit, and then you'll be allowed to cross that border. Now let me show you. When you arrive, you first come to this part, the passport inspection center, where you have all these white computers around. Okay, when you get to this particular spot, what you do is to put in your details. So you touch on the screen, you'll be asked to put in your passport number, your name, your age, your country of citizenship, your purpose. What type of visa do you have? Is it a study permit, a work permit, or just a visitor's visa? You put all of those information in this computer. When you finish, you need to do a declaration of the goods that you have brought in. So they are going to ask you, what goods have you brought into Canada? And at this point, you need to declare everything that you have. So they're going to ask you, do you have meat? Do you have fish? Whatever, vegetables. And please be honest and make an honest declaration. Because if you don't declare everything you have, and they later find out that you have something else which is not allowed into the country, you may face fines, or you may even face the charge of imprisonment, right? So when you get here, you make sure that you declare everything that you have. One thing that the Canadian government doesn't allow people to bring from outside is meat, fresh meat. When you have fresh meat in your luggage, you are not allowed to bring it to Canada. So it's either you roast it or you dry it. For that, I think you'll be allowed. So when you get to that particular spot, after declaring all your details and all the goods that you have brought in, you'll be given a check. So it's more or less like a receipt or a card with all your details. Then you move from where the computers are, and then you get to that stage. You see where the people are moving in line. Okay, so that is the stage. When you get to this stage, you just follow the queue, and then you be directed on which officer you should go to be serviced. When you get to this point, there are two rows. I see two rows. There is a section for people who are already in Canada, permanent residents or citizens, or people who already have their work permit. And then there's also a section for those who are new coming in. You are a student or a worker, but this is going to be your first time coming into Canada. You also have a section that you will pass. So you will follow the queue, and then finally you will get to the visa officer. Let me show you where the visa officers are, and then let's see how that goes. Okay, so as you can see, let's zoom in a little bit. As you can see in the cubicles, there are immigration officers in the cubicle. You can see a gentleman with a black bag standing before the immigration officer in the cubicle. Now, at this stage, that is where the visa officer is going to interrogate you. The immigration officer is going to ask you why you've come to Canada, your reason for coming, and then any documents that they may ask from you. There is no specific, let's say, methodology or set of questions that they ask. Some are random questions, but there are some particular questions that they ask. But the question they ask you will be based on the type of visa you have. If it's a visitor's visa or study permit or work permit, they would definitely ask you why you are coming in. If you are a student, they may ask you for your evidence that you've paid your fees, or evidence that you have enough money to take care of yourself, your address, whatever. So when you have answered all these questions and the immigration officer is convinced that you are a genuine visitor or you are genuinely coming to school, that is where they stamp your passport, and then they give you the clearance to enter Canada. Okay, so once you pass this stage and you go to the back, let me show you the back. There, immediately you reach that side, then you know that, hey, you are in Canada. Okay, so when you finally get to the part where you need to be interrogated by the immigration officer, this is a very critical stage of your entire studying in Canada journey. One mistake can send you back to your home country. It's going to be like when you have actually arrived in the country, but you won't get the clearance to actually enter the country. So this is a very critical stage, and you need to pay very close attention to it. Now, after doing your study application, it is important that you know all the details about the application you submitted, which led to the approval of your visa application. Now, when you arrive at the airport, the immigration officer is going to interrogate you and ask you a certain questions to be sure whether you are actually here to study or not. And this is the part that you also need to prove to the immigration officer that you are actually here for studies. They may want to ask you which type of school or what school are you attending. So you need to know the name of the school you are attending. You also need to know the course that you are studying. There have been instances that students get here, they ask them the course they are going to study, and they are unable to tell the course that they applied for and used in their visa application. If you find yourself in such a situation, the visa officer is going to send you back home. It is possible that the visa officer will ask you to prove your funds, show them evidence, give them evidence that you have enough money to pay for your studies and to pay for your stay whilst here in Canada. And this is where you may show it by having physical cash or by the bank statements that you have or a credit card. You need to show the amount of money that you have, which is going to be available to you. You understand? And so it is important that you know everything about the application you submitted for your study permit. Imagine getting here and the immigration officer is asking you about the school you used for your own application, and then you are unable to tell them about it. You are unable to tell them about the name or the course or your supervisor. You understand? So even if somebody if you use an agent in doing your study application and your visa gets approved, make sure that before you leave your home country to travel to Canada, you have all the details, all the information that the agent used in your visa application. It can either make you transiting from just arriving in Canada and entering Canada very easy for you. Arriving in Canada is not the same as entering in Canada. You can arrive in Canada, but you may not enter Canada. One thing I need to add is that I know you've dreamed about coming to study in Canada for so long, and sometimes when you arrive, it creates a sense of anxiety in you. It's like a sense of fear, and this affects you when you appear before the immigration officer. Please, I want to assure you that when you come to Canada and when you arrive and you stand in front of the immigration officer, you don't need to be anxious. You don't need to be afraid, right? You need to be confident about your purpose of coming, about everything. Okay, you don't need to be anxious, and you don't need to be drawn in fear such that when you stand before the immigration officer, you begin to fumble and your answers are not straightforward. Now, I know you might have heard a lot of stories, people being deported. Yes, they do happen, but it happens because of the way they present themselves. When you arrive here, don't be consumed by anxiety and fear. Be confident in yourself. The immigration officer is just human like you. Talk to the person, look straight into his eyes, answer your questions apt. Okay, now I've been here in Canada for a while, and I can tell you that the Canadian people are very nice people. They are really nice. It's like, I don't know, I've traveled to other places, but I haven't met a group of people who are so humane, so hospitable, and really show love to people. And that is the nature of the Canadian people. The immigration officers are not here to frustrate you or to trick you, or their purpose here is not to send you back to your home country, right? Their purpose here is to facilitate your transition from your home country to Canada. Their purpose here is to help you enter Canada smoothly. So just calm down, be confident, no fear, no anxiety. Talk to them like you're talking to your brother, your sister, your mother, your husband, whoever. Just see that you're talking to your friend, okay? They are very engaging. Even if you have difficulties and you ask them questions, they will go as slow as possible to explain things to you, okay? So don't go to the immigration officer queered up, so much fear and so much anxiety. Now, the reason why sometimes they ask so many questions is because of their previous experiences, how people have used other means to enter the country illegally, right? So they want to make sure that whoever is entering the country is really coming in for the purpose that he or she intends to come in. There are instances that people come in, they say they want to go to school. Immediately they get the permits, they don't step foot in the school again, they don't register. And these are some of the things that they want to keep. That is why they may want to interrogate you. But if you are confident and then you talk to them, you are going to have a smooth transition from arriving in Canada to entering Canada. The Canadian people they are very nice people. So tone down, okay? Calm down, be confident, and project yourself well. Have all your documents, your admission letter, you need to have it readily available with you, your proof of funds, your home address, your residential address, whatever you need to prove to them that you are actually coming here to study. You need to have all those documents, and your transition will just be smooth, and that dream of studying in Canada will just be realized. Okay, so this is the final part. You have gotten out of the plane, you've gone through passport inspection. When you are done with the passport inspection, you go to the immigration officer, and the immigration officer finally clears you, stamps your passport, and then says to you, welcome to Canada. then you go to the back. At this stage, you have crossed the line. When you cross the line, that is when you go to the last stage. And this last stage is the issuance of your study permit. The actual study permit you applied for. Now, if you do the application, the one they issue for you in your your passport, that one is not your study permit. That is just a visa to enter Canada. It is when you arrive in Canada and then you have your letter of introduction. That is where the real deal will be given to you. The actual study permits that you have dreamed about and cried about and spent sleepless nights doing your application. That is where they will print it out for you. So once you pass the immigration officer, you go to the next room, you get your study permit. Once you have your study permit in your hands, you are done. You are done. You just get your bags, get into your car, and off you go. You are finally and officially in Canada as a student, and you have your study permit in your hands to go to school, to work, and to live the life that you want to live here in Canada as a student.